Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Bullshit and Video Games. We're here with Jerry again.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right.
I'm really liking this game. Well, I'm not really liking them yet. I'm only like 30 or 40, maybe 50 turns in.
They're interesting. I never played the vanilla Skaven.
I don't think it's capable. I'm not capable of playing the vanilla.
Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't yet seen the power that you were talking about on a battlefield yet. Because I don't have good artillery, and I haven't been in a large pitched battle where the weapons teams actually mattered yet.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see.
Those of you who don't know, we're talking about
Warhammer 2.
Total War Warhammer 2. One of the new DLCs they released gave some new units and lords to the Skaven, who we both kind of agreed before weren't really that fun or interesting.
No, they weren't very competitive.
I mean, you could use them if you were really hardcore. You know, I saw some videos and stuff where people use them really well.
Stubborn. I think you'd have to accept constantly losing territories and just annoying things like this.
Yeah, when you play against them, they're one of those things. They're always annoying. They've always got troops somewhere doing something until you show up and just fight them off, scare them away, but then they always come back until you exterminate the little bastards, just like real rats. Until you exterminate them, they're always going to be a problem. But when you do decide to deal with them, they're not the biggest threat.
So for me, it's being able to colonize the cities.
Yeah.
Up levels, whatever that means.
That is really handy. Yeah, you can choose what level to settle or occupy the cities.
That and the Under Empire, or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah.
Expanding automatically and like sort of growing.
Yeah, it's a random chance, but it does happen.
Those two things make it playable for me.
Yeah, the game I've been playing, I purposely started, I think, 2 or 3 of these Under cities, and I've got like an Under Empire of 15, 20 cities now, and I didn't have to...
What turn are you at?
On my Skaven one? God, must be like 200 something.
Okay, so after playing now, what if you just went for the Under Empire from the very beginning? If you had to guess, how big could you get it by this turn? If you were just putting all your money into engineers and just going out and doing as many cities as possible?
If I was actively trying to expand my Under Empire, I could probably have a pretty big one.
Because you could just send engineers out to the far corners of the world and start in all these random places.
Exactly, yeah. You send your army, you fight a couple fights close to home, establish your empires, and then send your engineers really far away, and then they can just spread like a plague from there. Even that being said, you're still talking 15, 20 turns to get your engineer far away.
Yeah.
A couple of turns to build it up, and then it is, unfortunately, random chance that it'll spread.
Yeah, but so it's a significant chance.
Yeah, maybe
more than 10%, right?
I think for the base one, it's 10. Actually, I think it's 5% and then 10%.
Okay.
But
even 10% is a lot when you're talking about hundreds of turns.
I believe it is 10% for each adjacent.
Oh, okay, all right.
So if you're talking
there might
about
be 4 cities around you, and it's 10% for each one.
The chance that
every single turn.
Yeah, the chance that it expands to this one particular settlement, 10% per turn. The chance that it expands to a settlement per turn, that kind of depends on where you are.
Yeah. So, but generally, especially in high density areas, you're going to spread very quickly.
Yeah, you'll have a chance of spreading, get a decent little Under Empire going.
Yeah. So I'm sending an engineer down to the southwest right now. Mm-hmm. After he completes that deal, I'll probably just start an Under Empire over there. Why not? Mm-hmm. Right?
I mean, yeah.
I don't see any reason why not. And I'm going to try not to feel any connection with them, because I feel like it's one of those things that you're going to lose and gain randomly all the time. Like if a hero just comes into the settlement and finds the Under Empire, which apparently they can.
Yeah, if you build too much, you have a chance of discoverability. There are also some empires do also have special mechanics that make them more likely to discover,
like other
the Under Empires. Yeah. I think there was even another faction I was playing. I think it may have been Dark Elves, and they had some buildings or mechanics that made you more likely to discover Skaven Undercities. But they were a Warhammer 2 faction. So they were designed alongside the Skaven with them in mind. So some of the older ones, they may have retroactively added them in or something. They've given them mechanics, but the Dark Elves start near a bunch of Skaven, so it's you kind of know right from the beginning you're going to have to deal with them. Whereas the Empire, sure, sooner or later you're going to run into Skaven, but they're really not going to be that much of a problem with their undercities. You're more going to be fighting their wandering armies and shit. So, I was thinking after our podcast 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, I was thinking of an idea. My thought was, what games would you like to play again as if it was the first time you played it? And I'm going to throw off 2 examples of games that would fall into this category and games that wouldn't. So something that wouldn't would be, personally, Halo Combat Evolved. I had a great time playing it. First time playing it, amazing fun. But I've enjoyed every replay I've done. Yeah. And each replay has added to my experience. Now, something that I would like to play again would be Age of Empires 2. And the reason for that is, if I go to play it now, it's a good game. It's an alright game. But a lot of the fun and the excitement of learning that game from the beginning, of making these little mistakes, is lost. You know, I start up a new one, and the first thing I do, queue up 10 villagers, send my scout out, bring in the sheep. It's almost rote. I know how to play. I've maximized my efficiency, which, that's great. That can make for some good gameplay. Yet at the same time, when I was first playing, you're running your scout around the map. Oh my god, there's some sheep. And oh, how did he cut around those trees? Oh, he has an onager. Oh my god, what are trebuchets? So that's something, if I could go back and play that game again for the first time, I think it's something that's really, really good to play and learn the first time. Are there any games that would fall into either of those categories for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Halo is a perfect example. I completely agree with Halo. I had a great time playing it the first time I've played it, but it's almost exactly the same experience replaying it. Yeah. And so, like, maybe the only thing within Halo that has not withstood, I don't know, multiple playthroughs, I suppose, is like the awe that you have with the game and the enemies in the game, especially the hunters. I remember that when I first played the game, when I didn't understand the trick to killing hunters. Yeah. You can, that first time you encounter the hunters, I think the first time is when it's just you against 2 of them, is on the island level. Maybe that's like the 3rd mission or something, where you're looking for the cartographer.
Yes, silent cartographer.
Yes, exactly. And you have to go up that little passage where it's too small to get your Jeep, but you can get it up there if you really finagle it. Again, that's something you learn later on.
Done that a couple times.
And you can use the minigun to kill the things. But anyway, you get up there with like a battle rifle, and the first time you fight them, they seem so indestructible. They just take an infinite amount of bullets, and they take explosions, and they can kill you instantly with their fuel rod cannon. They can kill you instantly by smacking you. But now you go in there with the pistol and you kill them both like it's nothing. It's plaything.
I mean, there is definitely an advantage.
Even on the hardest difficulty, the elites are way more difficult than the hunters.
Yeah, there's an advantage to experience, and you know, some games they're great their first replay, but I wouldn't necessarily want to forget how to play the game and start again. If I could forget everything about Age of Empires and play that game again. The number of nights I spent, you know, awake, learning to play that game, trying new strategies, doing different things, you know. So, and it's more than just replayability. There's a lot of games that have good replayability. That's not what I'm meaning.
So as for the game that I would want to replay again, I have to ask, in this situation, is it me now, Brian, 28 years old, in China playing it? Or am I reliving when I was that person back then when I played it? That's extremely important for this example that I'm going to use.
Personally, I would say let's take you now. But if you want to make a case for you back then, because that kind of falls into your personal experience or your mood at the time, and that's not speaking anything against the game.
I would say it's more has to do with the situation. Okay. Or like maybe the environment of the game. So I have 2 examples.
Why don't you shoot it at us anyways?
I have 2 examples that only work if I'm allowed to go back.
let's go back anyways, and then let's analyze it from the other perspective.
So the first example is classic World of Warcraft and the Burning Crusade. I played these in high school. I played Classic WoW in 2006, and I played it for like maybe 4 to 6 months before TBC came out. And so I didn't get any of the raiding experience. I didn't get any of the highest end experience in Classic WoW. But learning the game, back when you knew nothing about it, like, you were doing things like picking dwarves because the character had big muscles and stuff like that. Or, I mean, I specifically picked dwarves because I read R.A. Salvatore books, and dwarves are always, like, the strongest, hardiest race. And then I picked a dwarf warrior, and I was like, oh, man, he's going to be so fucking badass. And I would be running around the world looking for, like, hidden secrets. And if I would find a place where there's no other players, I would assume that it's like a secret area, and I'd see if they have anything special to buy. And like they have like some white armor, you know, and it's like slightly better than the piece I'm wearing. And I'd buy it, and I'm like, man, my armor points just went up by like 7 points. You know, I had like 152 armor, now I have 159 armor. I'm so much better now. No. Like, I mean, I remember just hours and hours and hours, not even doing quests or grinding or anything, just running around Loch Mudan and Dun Moreau and Westfall and all these areas, and like trying to get into the Badlands with those level fucking 40 creeps. I think they were spiders, like the big desert spiders, and you're like a level 12 dwarf warrior, and you just aggro them from a mile away.
Now I can see that, and I understand that. I was actually thinking of World of Warcraft myself. However, I disagree. For me, I had a similar experience. You know, I would go around and explore, not questing or do anything. But for me, World of Warcraft was a cumulative experience. Every replay I've done has added to my overall experience. So going back and relearning, yes, there is a certain sense of adventure, but for me, my cumulative gameplay is worth more than that initial experience. Now, again, that's where you get into mindset, where I'm coming from I'm looking at all my cumulative play, and would I want to restart it now? No. Whereas as yours, you were younger. This was maybe your first MMO you were playing.
Wait, no. Put that shit aside.
Okay.
So, first of all, I need to criticize you a moment. You say cumulative experience. There's no such thing with World of Warcraft. All right. Every year or 2 years, there's a massive expansion, and if you're lucky, the game changes substantially. If you're unlucky, it's a literally completely different game. So there's no such thing as cumulative. Vanilla to TBC, there were massive changes to the game. And in TBC to Wrath of the Lich King, even bigger changes. And in Wrath of the Lich King to Cataclysm, you're at a completely, from the ground up, completely different game. And so there's nothing cumulative about it. And that's why that experience, that like year and a half, maybe 2 years where I played like 10 hours a day, again, that's why it's so situational. If you tried to put me in that mindset today, it wouldn't be possible just logistically. I don't have 10 hours a day for 2 years to play that game with absolutely no other responsibilities. Not one other consideration in my life other than playing World of Warcraft, and everything else is secondary. So I'd have to go back to high school and do that. My other example would be Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne, a custom game that I used to play every single day. As I basically transitioned away from Warcraft 3 custom games into World of Warcraft. And this was because the custom game scene in Warcraft 3 collapsed utterly, and it really never came back. I logged on a little while ago, and there seems to be a few people playing, but never like it was back in the day. Back in the day, there would be 100 games hosted at all times of the day, 24/7. And there were no host bots, so these were individual people hosting games because they wanted to play them.
Nice.
And 100 games would be posted, and there'd be like 80 different variants.
There are many games that will live or die on their community.
And so what happened is the MOBA came into the community and destroyed it.
Oh, God.
And within like a 6-month or maybe 12-month period, it went from 100 games of 80 different types to 100 games, and 95 of them were MOBAs. 95 of them were like 4 different variants of MOBA. Oh, and then they actually created the game Dota, the actual standalone title Dota, and all those people who were playing Warcraft 3 Dota games, modded versions of Warcraft 3, they went over to Dota, and the community just disappeared. So, First of all, I have to go back to when the community existed.
Right.
Secondly, I have to go back to, again, a time when I could play this game 6 or 8 hours a day.
Fair enough.
Thirdly, I have to go back to when this specific game that I'm going to talk about was played, which is not anymore, which is a tragedy.
Right.
And this game required an intense community feel for it to even exist in the way it did. It's called LOAP, Life of a Peasant. It's a game where the map is a city environment, and there's many different variants of it, but the original variant was very bare bones, where you always have to have the maximum amount of players you can have in the game is 12, but that includes computer, like AI. So any AI that's in the game has to have a player slot.
Okay.
So then the other 11 slots are open to actual human beings.
Okay. 3
of those have a job when you start the game. Okay. The other 8 people.
Maths.
Yeah, exactly. Don't math in my direction. The other 8 people were peasants. Now, the whole point of this game is you start into the game as either a peasant or somebody with a job already. And the people with jobs already are the police, the mafia, and the drug lord. And the other 8 people, they are just free to do whatever they want in the city. And there's almost no structure in terms of the story and what happens in the game. There's virtually no structure. The moment the game loads up, if you say, let's say, you select the police, that's it. That's where the structure ends. So you have your hero is the police chief. You own the police station, and you can create cops. You can create laws. You can demand things. But all of this is up to you, and it has to be like player driven. Like, so if you say to the players in the game, because you're the police, you say, okay, I'm making it the law that you have to buy a license to drive a car. Now it's also up to you to enforce that law. You have to go and arrest people who break that law. And so, and it's the same thing. It's story driven with the mafia and the drug lord. And then the other 8 players, they're free to roam around the city. There's dozens of jobs that they can take. There's all sorts of things. They can start gangs. They can rob the bank. They can do fucking anything they want.
Just for curiosity's sake, how large is this city? Like, if you were to start on the farthest western side and run to the eastern side, about how long would it take you to cross the map?
That's an interesting question. I'd have to say maybe a couple minutes.
Okay, so it's a good size. Yeah,
usually a significant portion of the map is forested, and usually a significant portion of the map is water. And then the city is probably, I don't know, less than 100 buildings, but more than 50.
Okay.
And probably half of them are real estate that the player can buy and own. And it was such an intense experience to be playing that game. And oh, sorry about that.
Bless you.
Oh, I thought I had another one coming.
Sorry to any atheists I just offended.
I've gotten out of the habit of saying it. Being in China for so long.
It is a habit. That's...
Yeah, it is a meaningless...
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't say it anymore, actually. Anyway, so it was such an intense experience because most games, you'd go in and somebody would die or they would lose their shit or whatever, and they would rage quit and leave.
Right.
But I played this game every single day, probably 2 or 3 times a day, because most games were only like 30 minutes or 40 minutes. But every now and then, you would get absolute diehards who wouldn't leave the game no matter what, and they would just role play anything that happened. And so sometimes you would get a single game that lasts 6 hours.
Oh, jeez.
And during this time, there's like multiple crazy things that happen. That's entirely... You have like mayor elections. You have fucking gang warfare. You have crooked officials and crooked cops. You have... One of the players will take the job of a judge, and you'll have people getting arrested and trials happening and shit. It's so over the top, and it's all 100% player created. Because you're just in this sandbox city. And that, I don't think I can ever have that experience again. I don't think that there's any possibility of recreating that experience without physically going back to that time, which would have been like, what, 2004 or so? 2003 maybe? But I would always be the drug lord. And I was so fucking... I was like highest level professional drug lord. I could literally... We could do an entire podcast how you just talk about LAP.
Were there any particular victory conditions, or was it just really open-ended?
There were no victory conditions.
Okay.
There was no way to technically win or technically
it was just
lose.
when everyone left or when everyone just said, okay, we're done.
When people are sick of the game, they leave.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And power scaling was really interesting in the game because the players, the peasants, I should say, they start out with literally nothing. You just have a hero who's level 1 with empty bags and no gold, and you don't even have a job. Mm-hmm. And gold is incredibly important in the game, but it's hard to come by.
Makes sense.
And for everyone listening, anyone who's experienced with LAP, I'm talking about the absolute bare bones original LAP without Weapons Master or CIA or any of the add-ons that came in the later years. Even LAP Gold is quite a few generations after the original. Anyway, so the reason I would be Drug Lord is because he had the highest power ceiling. He was capable of getting the strongest.
Right.
However, he's by far the weakest of the three actual
professions,
jobs. Yeah, job things. Let's say the job slots. The Mafia starts out as the strongest, but they have a baseline of strength where it's actually very difficult for them to increase their strength. The only way the Mafia can get stronger over the course of the game is by leveling up their heroes. They're actually the only person in the game who has more than one. They have 3 heroes.
Okay.
And they are able to create units and create armies, just like the Drug Lord and the police. Now, the way this game works is you have a population thing. All right? And your really elite troops cost population. And your shitty troops cost no population. They just cost gold. So you can have as many as you want. Now, when you're talking about the free population unit, the Mafia has the best one, and the police have the second best, and the Drug Lord has the worst free unit. However, the Mafia has the best elite unit, the Drug Lord has the second best, and the third best of the police, but the elite unit for the Mafia doesn't cost food. They have a limited amount of them, though. They have 99 when they start the game. They have a building called the Yakuza Den. And in that building, you have 99 charges. And each charge spawns a permanent Yakuza member, which are your super elite gang members.
Right.
They're really good. They're better than SWAT members, and they're better than advanced drug lord guards, which are the 2 elite ones for the other sources.
Was there a...
But you only get 99.
Cooldown or
nope,
time
instant.
Between? So,
nope, you
like
just...
Between.
Nope.
Could you just spam all 99
you just spawn all
99?
Yes.
Okay.
So here's the issue with that is that you can destroy things permanently in this game. You can do, so if, let's say, the Drug Lord and the Mafia gang up on the police, they can go there and they can destroy all the buildings, they can destroy everything permanently, so there is no police anymore. The problem with this is that the Mafia has so much power in the beginning of the game that almost every player who plays Mafia abuses their power and it slowly starts to dwindle. And you have 3 heroes, and the only way for you to make money is to rob the bank. And that's why you have 3 heroes, because that hero has to actuate, has to do the activity, that does walk over like a little trigger circle to steal money. And it's a dangerous activity because the police are almost always going to be against it because it's not in their best interest to have a powerful mafia running around the city. And the bank is very, very close to the police station, so it's very easy for them to defend. And so to hold the bank, to take and hold the bank, not only does it take an army from the Mafia, but it takes a very dedicated and consistent effort. So when you start the game, the Mafia has the ability to fight a war successfully, if they want to. But it is almost 100% certainty that that war will cripple them for the rest of the game, and they won't be able to come back from it. So it's not in their best interest to go right over and destroy the Drug Lord or destroy the police, because then they'll be so weak that the other person will destroy them. The Drug Lord is so weak in the beginning of the game that if, right when the game loads in, if the police officer just loads up 3 vans full of SWAT teams and just goes right through the front door of the drug lord's base, he'll destroy the base. He'll most likely capture the drug lord if it's a inexperienced drug lord player, and the drug lord will be in jail. Why doesn't he do that? All right, because this is the beauty of this game. It's because everyone in the game needs the drug lord, because the drugs are the best way to improve the quality of your character. All of the drugs give permanent positive effects to your character. For example, heroin levels up your character by 1 level. Methamphetamine increases your strength. Pot increases your health. Things like this.
Video game logic.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So if within the first 5 minutes, a SWAT team, a bunch of SWAT teams break down the front door of the drug lord's base, like you could do this within the first 30 seconds of the game, maybe 45 seconds. And then within the first 2 minutes, you're driving back to your police station with the drug lord in a police van. He's been arrested. You have a car that has an ability that grabs players and brings them into the car.
Nice.
Without the player's control. Okay. And then back at the police station, you have a jail, which is just like an open room with an open door. And when you drive the car into the room, the car despawns and the door closes and the door is unattackable. And so the person is permanently trapped in this little room. And the only way to get them out is a switch inside of the police station where if a character attacks the switch, all the doors open.
Okay.
So, what happens now? What happens now is there's a mafia. There's a mafia and there's 8 players in the city. All of them want what the drug lord's got. And the drug lord just shuts down business until someone breaks him out of jail.
Right.
And so, right off the bat, what you're doing when you arrest the drug lord is you're not only making enemies with the mafia, which you're already enemies with. The mafia needs drugs more than anyone else because they need their heroes to be powerful in order to successfully rob the bank.
Right.
But you're also making enemies with the 8 players, and because everyone's so power hungry in this game, when you have 8 peasants, at least 2 or 3 of them are going to try to go into organized crime themselves because players are allowed to rob the bank, they're allowed to sell drugs, they're allowed to do these things. And so they're going to be starting their own little street gangs around the city. There's going to be at least one player who takes the mayor's position. If there's a president position, depending on the version you're playing, there'll be a president. There'll be a judge. There'll be all these different jobs, and they have different levels of power or influence or leverage, I suppose. And all of these people are instantly your enemy when you arrest the drug lord. And so
sounds like the police need to conduct a couple of raids, level their shit up, and then bust the drug lord.
Well, the police never get stronger. So they never get stronger, but they have a strong base level. So the way I always think of it is like, if you have a scale of like 1 to 10 power, only the drug lord's capable of getting to 10. The mafia probably starts at 7. The police start at like 6. Players can get up to probably 5 or 6. Maybe just 5, but the drug lord starts at like a 1. Or no, I'd say the drug lord starts at like a 3. A player starts at the 1.
Okay.
And at like the 30-minute mark, maybe 45 minutes, 30 minutes if you're good, if you really know what you're doing, you can get up to like the police strength. But then it goes up exponentially. So at the 30-minute mark, you're as strong as the police, where you could hold them off. Like those 3 SWAT vans, they're not going to take you out anymore.
Okay.
And then like the hour mark or so, you're above the mafia. You're probably at like an 8 or a 9. And then like an hour and a half in, you're basically unkillable. Your drug lair is a fucking fortress, like Dr. Evil level fortress, like inside of a hollow dead volcano. And you've got real estate all over the city filled with soldiers. You've got armored cars and helicopters and stuff. All of your drug dealing is done by fleets of helicopters at this point in the game. And your hero never leaves his lair because there's no reason for him to. Because if he leaves the lair, he could be arrested. And so when somebody orders drugs, like 6 helicopters fly over their house that they own in the city and drop drugs into the house.
Did someone say Amazon?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's such a great game, man. It's such a great game. You get into so many crazy situations, and you start making so much money, and like I said, money's hard to come by, especially for the peasants, that you start buying people. All right. If the highest, the most lucrative conventional position in the city, and I say conventional because there's some things you can do to finagle other jobs to make them ultra lucrative, but is the mayor, where you get 50 gold. I think it's like every 10 seconds.
Okay.
Or yeah, something like that.
How long would an average game last?
An hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
So usually you'd have the potential to get that strong.
But there's only one person for every job.
Okay.
So it's literally a race. Like we're talking about, like whoever has the fastest internet connection is going to get the mayor's position. And the mayor's building is right next to where you spawn. So it's a race to round the corner, run into the office, and walk onto the pad. But then you just got this automatic money coming in. But even the mayor is fucking dead broke compared to even like a low-level drug dealer. But when you're talking about like hour 2, hour 3 drug dealer, they're making ludicrous sums of money. We're talking about thousands, tens of thousands of gold at a time. And so then you just start outright buying people. And so one of the rules I had was I wouldn't sell drugs to anyone unless they allied me and they would share a vision with me. But I would never share vision with anyone else. And I would use my leverage as being the drug dealer to force this situation on everyone, because this is not ideal. This puts people at a big disadvantage. They don't want to do that. But they don't get any of my drugs unless they do it. So what this means is an hour into the game, I've got vision of everyone in the city, but no one can see what I'm doing. And if I lose vision with anyone, that means they've unallied me, and it's a warning sign for me.
Right.
But usually about an hour into the city, I recognize who's going the route of organized crime. And I have so much money, I can just buy them, and I can launch proxy wars. Because no one knows who's allies with who. And so I see this guy over here who's starting a street gang, and he's like extorting people, and I can message him and be like, look, you're making fuck all money. You're making money from this job over here, and you're using your gang to make a little bit of money, and you're going to the mall, and you're trying to extort people. This is what's going to happen, all right? Fuck that. What you're gonna start doing is this area over here by the docks. There's a lot of cops over there, but I want to control the docks. But I don't want to go to war with the cops. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna periodically put together an army. And in this game, the maximum selection amount is 12 units. And so whenever you talk about armies, you're always talking in units of 12. Okay. And so I would say you're gonna put together 36 guys every 10 or 15, 20 minutes. And you're going to run them into the docks, and you're going to just go into an open warfare with the police. And you're going to lose those units, but it doesn't matter because I'm paying for them. And I'm going to give you 3,000 gold for that. And that's a ridiculous amount of money for them. Because those units, those 3 dozen super cheap units, they probably cost them 1,500 gold. So they're making a profit. They probably cost 50 gold a piece, maybe 100 gold a piece at the most. And then I'll give them 5,000 or I'll give them 10,000. And so you start putting these people in your pocket, right? And the mafia will do the same thing, but they don't have enough currency to do it with more than one person. There's usually maybe one person that will be in the mafia's pocket. And then the police have an item called a deputy's badge. And they can give this item to another player, to a peasant, and then that peasant gains control of a mini police station in the north. Because the police are in the far south. Okay? And so now there'll always be one deputy. But again, this game, 99% of the content in this game is created by the players. And you know the first thing I'm going to do is try to bribe that deputy. I'm going to go to that deputy and look, how much do you really like being a police officer? I know that you're making 10 gold every 30 seconds or some ridiculously small amount of money. I know that you're weak as shit because your police station doesn't have the ability to create soldiers like the other one does. You can create a few units, but you don't have the free unit, and you don't have SWAT units. You have like an intermediate unit that costs food and gold, and so you're never in a position to have a lot of units. And so I'm like, look, I start throwing some money their way, and they leave me alone. It's great, man. It's a beautiful game. It gets so overwhelmingly deep, and there's so much There's so much fuckery going on. Everyone's trying to fuck everybody at all times. It's great.
Alright, I'm just going to jump back for a bit. So other games that I would want to play again the first time. For me, I would have to include Oblivion.
Yes, me too.
Could you replay the game right now? Yeah. Is it a good game? Yeah.
Great game.
Is there something about just starting that game the first time, that you just you wander around, you don't know what you're doing, you bumble around, you go into a dungeon, you get killed, you fuck up, you learn. Other games, another one I found really interesting was Advent Rising.
Don't know that game.
No, it was not a very well-known game. It was back on the original Xbox, but it was very story-driven. It had its screenplay written by Orson Scott Card.
Who's that?
He's the guy who did Ender's Game.
Okay, that was a shit book.
I thought it was all right.
I think it's one of the most overrated books of all time.
I would agree that it was
especially science fiction.
Yeah, it was an all right book. Anyways,
extremely underwhelming book. Sorry, go on.
Anyways, one of my favorite games of all time, but one of the things that I enjoyed was playing that first time. You don't know what's going on. You're learning how this game works. You're trying new things, doing whatever. Could I replay it now? Yeah. Is it a good game right now? Yeah. But that first time learning how to play was just something else.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I don't know what your first character was like, but I actually hated, and I still kind of do, I think it's tedious and annoying, dungeon crawling. I don't enjoy dungeon crawling as a mechanic in video games. I don't enjoy it. It's not fun for the most part. I mean, it really takes an exceptional dungeon for me to enjoy it. And so my first Oblivion character was just a thief, just a professional thief. And I had like 100 hours, 150 hours on him without ever leaving the cities, without ever doing a single dungeon.
Really?
And pretty much not doing any quests either. I wasn't in the Mages Guild. I wasn't in the Dark Brotherhood. I was just a thief. And I wasn't even in the Thieves Guild until I found out about them accidentally. And I didn't know that most people go to the House of Darylin or whatever his name is, in the Garden District. Sorry, not in the Garden District, in the Waterfront District. Most people go to his house late at night and they see him there with the torch. Arman, the Thieves Guild guy. Yeah. Well, what happened to me is I got arrested. I didn't have enough money to pay for the thing, and I'm a thief, so I can't really fight. So I'm like, okay, I'll just go to jail. And then in jail, a person from the Thieves Guild approached me and asked me to join, or like they gave me the lead. Yeah. And so I just thought that was an amazing experience, and I became such a specialized character, and I was so good at stealing shit. And back when you don't know anything about the game and you're still exploring everything, and again, this was like 2005. I think. And so
Oblivion was a long time ago.
Yeah, it came out in like 2005 or 2006. And so there's pretty much no YouTube. And, you know, you're still getting the hang of the internet. You're not really Googling things on a constant, second-by-second basis anymore. Or like you are now, I should say.
Yep.
And so I remember, like, the height of my career as a thief. There's a guy in the Eldon Gardens district who's an art collector. And you hear about him in the game from time to time as being like a very affluent man. And you can go into his home, into the first level of his home. He owns like an entire building in the Gardens district. The district with the dragon statue in the middle. In the Imperial City.
It's been a long time since I played down.
Anyway, you can go into his first level. So this guy has a full-time maid that I think lives in the basement. He has a butler who also lives in, I think, the first floor. He has 3 guards who work on 8-hour shifts. Okay, so there's always a guard in his house. And then he comes and goes as he will. And so I spent days, I'm talking about in real life, where I would get on Oblivion and I would play for hours, and all I was doing was casing the establishment. All I was doing was following around the people, following him around until he would leave a city, and then I'd leave him alone. I learned about the full daily schedules of all 3 of his guards. I knew where they live. I knew what kind of family they had, like what kind of life they lived, everything. And I finally came to the conclusion, and this was very unusual for me as a thief, that someone had to die. I came to the conclusion that there simply was no opening, nothing that I was good enough to exploit, at least, without killing someone. And so I figured out which guard was on duty when the butler and the maid were not around. And I followed him to his house, and I went into his house and assassinated him. I stabbed him with a dagger that had paralysis on it, and then I poisoned him and just stab. So, and so he never showed up to work. And then that night, before the next shift started, I went there and robbed the house.
That was definitely a dungeon crawler.
Yeah.
And for me, that was one of the things I loved about the game, is just trying to go to the next city and, there's a dungeon over here. And I would spend 20 minutes going into this dungeon, stagger out with like 2 encumbrance spots left.
Yeah.
And what you could do is you could drop an item, and then you could use, I can't remember what it was, but you could pick it up and hold it in front of you.
Yeah.
So then you just find like some heavy chest piece or a big 2-handed sword, and
run around with that holding it in front of it.
Yeah, you just try and make it back to the nearest merchant. And I would spend forever clearing dungeons. That was what I did.
Let me ask you a question then. This is a little bit of a sidetrack, but it's a general question about RPGs and specifically Bethesda games, since we've both played quite a lot of Bethesda games. I want to play Fallout 4. However, I'm not going to play it unless it's heavily modded. And one of the things I've decided that I'm going to do with the next Bethesda RPG I play, the very first playthrough, specifically Fallout 4. I think if Elder Scrolls 6 came out tomorrow, I would play it vanilla. Obviously, it's such a, it's the holy grail of RPGs. Elder Scrolls. I would want a pure experience.
I think they've been dedicating a lot of their stuff to ESO though.
Yeah. But anyways, so what I would do with Fallout 4 is, and let me hear what you think. Tell me if this is breaking the game too much. Is I would give myself infinite carry weight, but no fast travel. And my logic is that the contemporary Bethesda RPG player spends so much of their time fast traveling because they're limited in weight capacity, but you're not really limited in weight capacity because you can fast travel. So all that means is when you have 600 pounds to carry and you can only carry 200 pounds, you're just going to go fast travel 3 times.
Yes, I would.
And you're going to spend so much time looking at loading screens. And that's what prompted me to have this thought. I don't know what game I was playing. I was probably playing like New Vegas or something. And I started thinking to myself, I also just did 49 episodes of Oblivion, which was a lot, yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, every single time I'm teleporting back to my house to drop stuff off, I'm thinking, why do they even have this teleport option? Like, they should have an option where you take away fast travel, but you allow infinite carry weight.
That would make sense. I mean, I could see that because you're not trying to give yourself infinite carry weight. You are balancing it against the fact of taking away fast travel. And I think one of the reasons they've had both of those is for gameplay balance. With fast travel, it's meant to keep you from having to run for half an hour away from this dungeon, right?
Yeah.
So I can see why it's in there. I can also see why they didn't allow you to fast travel when over encumbered, because they did want to encourage item management. But I would see that as a fair compromise. No, I would not have a problem with that.
All right. So you wouldn't have a problem with that. You wouldn't think it's too broken.
No, because you're not simply giving yourself something for no reason. It's not arbitrary. You're not trying to say, I'm going to give myself unlimited ammo because I'm tired of buying ammo.
So I think specifically Fallout 4, because it's already so broken, I'm going to mod it anyway. That's what I'll try it for the first time with that game. And it sounds like Fallout 4 has this like big scrapping system where you're like scrapping and building and crafting things. And I feel like that's going to just exacerbate the loading screen problem where if you play 100 hours on a character, how much of that time were you looking at a loading screen? I'd say at least 5 or 10%.
It depends on the game, but even with low estimates, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 5% is a low estimate.
You spend a surprising amount of time. Even with these big open world games, you still spend a decent amount of time, especially with fast travel. Because the bigger the game, the more necessary fast travel is. But that also means the more it's going to be used. So yes, I would say that's fair.
It matters what the game world is like as well. Like Oblivion, I always got the urge to just run through the forest. Whereas in Skyrim, I never wanted to. I always wanted to fast travel.
Yeah. A friend of mine, he was playing Oblivion, and he stalled on these quests. He got a couple of them done, but he had to go this quest. He had to go way up north. He had to escort prince or some fella up to the Sky Palace or whatever.
Skyrim. This is
this was Oblivion, and it was the Blades Temple north of the northern city.
Of Bruma.
Yeah. And he actually
Sky Ruler Temple, I think it's called.
Yeah. Actually, that's it. Sky something. He didn't know that you could fast travel. He had probably spent a good 20-30 hours in this game. Exploring.
Well, that happened to me as well. I probably played for 5 or 10 hours without knowing I could fast travel.
Yeah, and he kind of lost interest because he was tired of running everywhere. He would go to a dungeon and he could only explore a little bit before he was over encumbered, or do a little bit of this. And so, in some of these games, there is a certain necessity to fast travel, especially the larger you make your world. Or Let me clarify that. The more artificial openness you put to your world, the more necessary it is to have fast travel. Something like World of Warcraft, it has, I would say, a fair balance of large open world, and yet there's always something to interact with or somewhere to go. Skyrim, I found a lot of Skyrim you're just running.
Yeah.
Well, and it was a beautiful game.
World of Warcraft is quite empty, though. It's quite empty. If you're not questing in that area, there's almost no reason to be there.
I found maybe it's just the way I played or the way I was playing that particular game, but I didn't have a problem with World of Warcraft's world. But for me, Skyrim, I found I would be running around Skyrim and you're just running and you're just running, and that's really all you're doing.
There's so many questions for developers of video games, and if I could ask the developers of Bethesda a few questions, one of them, maybe my first question would be, if they were going to recreate the world of Azeroth from the ground up today, how much bigger could they make the world on modern equipment, on modern servers? So what if it's the exact same world, just scaled up?
How much bigger would they want to make it?
How much can they make it? How much bigger can they make it? Because right now, in my mind, the only argument for not having every single WoW player on the same server is because the world's not big enough. Right now, if you have, I think in Classic, they only have like 4,000 people on each server. And in full population servers, it was quite crowded. And so if you're going to have, let's say all of North America on one server, without sharding or without any of that bullshit, they genuinely are on the same server, they're all together, then the world needs to get bigger. A lot bigger.
You need to have a lot more space in which for everyone to run. Because some maps, it only takes 10 or 15 people, but because there are certain areas that you want to go or certain areas that everyone goes, that 10 or 15 people are going to run into each other a lot.
Or like big cities. Ironforge, it only takes 50 people between the bank and the auction house to make Ironforge look full, even though the rest of the city is completely empty.
Yeah. But then it would be more than just making things bigger. You would have to have a complete redesign. Otherwise, you would have empty spaces where you're in this wasteland and you're running for 10 minutes up and down hills, not a mob in sight. There's just a couple of trees and shit, right? So it would require a massive overhaul of not just the graphics, but also the content in it, like what you would place, how you would populate it, what you would have, what you could interact with.
I agree. You'd have to make it more dense.
Yeah. But it is interesting.
Classic WoW's coming out this summer. You gonna play? You should. You never played it, right? You started in Wrath of the Lich King or whatever?
I started in around the time Wrath launched.
Okay.
Yeah, shortly before. I don't know.
Part of the original trilogy still, but by the time you got around, it was just like it was a desiccated corpse of what it used to be.
Yes, I
quit in Wrath of the Lich King because I couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't handle the changes.
I ended up quitting in Wrath of the Lich King as well, but I started playing maybe 2 or 3 weeks before Lich King dropped. So I actually hit Outlands about 3 or 4 days after Lich King dropped. So my first walk into Outlands,
empty.
There was not a single person inside.
Of course.
It was kind of nice. Actually, the first person I saw in Outlands came swooping out of the sky in a big fucking ass dragon, mined the piece of ore that I was looking for, and then just fucking took off.
I thought you were going to say ganked you.
No. But other than that, I was shocked. Because I was running, I had no problem. All the ore was mine, all the mobs were mine. Anything I wanted to do, there was no competition. Although it was a little bit desolate. You'd go into the cities, and
so you love WoW now. It's completely empty and there's no competition. Man.
Well, that's good and bad. There are some times where if I were to go into Orgrimmar, and
you were a Horde player?
I was.
Filthy Horde scum.
In my defense,
for the Alliance,
Blood Elves are amazing, and I played Horde because my friends played Horde.
You would play a Blood Elf too.
Yeah.
So fucking OP. So broken.
Oh,
their racial abilities are bullshit. They have a racial ability that's like an AoE silence, right?
I can't remember.
I think so. It's such horseshit. Anyway,
it was worse than that. I
you
wasn't
should
just a
switch
Blood
over
Elf.
to the Alliance.
I was a Blood Elf Paladin. Paladin. During Wrath of the Lich King, which was a major
Canadians,
which was a major undead release, and they were straight up overpowered. Yeah. They were like,
that was the first time. Well, wait a second. Did the Horde get paladins in TBC? I don't think so.
Yes, they did.
They did.
That was when Blood Elves were introduced, and Blood Elves had paladins.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, Isle of Pelfalos. Yeah.
I can't remember what they got during Lich King. I can't remember if they added any extra professions for the Horde during Lich King.
No, everyone got Death Knights.
Oh, yes. That's what it was. But no, I mean, Paladins, they were straight up overpowered.
Death Knights have gotten a significant nerf since Wrath of the Lich King. But they were by far the most overpowered class in the game.
They were
fucking ludicrous.
They were one of the only races against which I consistently struggled.
Well, it's not a race; it's a class. I think only the undead on the Horde side, and only the humans on the Alliance side could be them. Maybe one other race.
I believe Blood Elves could be Death Knights.
Okay, I think it was 2 races on each side, maybe.
I'm not sure,
but not everyone could be a Death Knight.
Yeah.
Like an elf couldn't be a Death Knight, I think.
But I mean, I would run around. Mages were.
Yeah. 1 second, we're gonna pause this. Yep. All right, we're back. Just had to make sure that the apartment wasn't gonna burn down. I could smell some gas. Oh, we got. What were we talking about?
We were talking about World of Warcraft, and
are you gonna play? You should.
Maybe.
You should. Maybe. It's a lot of money.
Money is not the problem. It's more, do I want to?
Well,
there are many reasons why I quit that game to begin with.
Well, I'm going to be playing, and that's a pretty good reason. But you've also got a nice computer, and it works decently well from China. I've been playing on the American server from here in China with my friend back home, and it almost always works.
That's definitely a bonus, but I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, let me know if you do. I thought, are you the Lizardman?
No. I was
fighting a Lizardman.
I was just going to start off my Skaven one for some of the Undercities. We were talking about some Skaven at the beginning, but anywho.
Yeah, bring it full circle to the Skaven.
Yeah. I was just going to have it going in the background. I was just going to end a couple of turns.
That's fair. I can't stop thinking about, this is totally unrelated, okay? But I can't stop thinking about how I would design my own gaming chair if I built one. And after breaking every chair I've ever sat in for long enough, I just destroy chairs. I've decided that I'm going to make it out of wood. No cushions or any bullshit like that. It's just going to be wood. But it's going to be ergonomic. All right? It's going to have a nice lumbar support. Nice support for my legs. And I want a lever on the side where I pull it and it goes from upright to 45 degree lean back.
Kind of like a lazy boy?
Yeah. But not all the way down, not laying down.
Right.
I just want it to be back enough where gravity is pulling me into a good posture.
Okay.
That's my theory. My theory is the only way to maintain good posture over really long periods of time is to be gravity assisted. It doesn't matter how much you care about your posture. If you sit in a chair for 10 hours, your posture is going to be shit.
You're going to slouch.
Yeah, You're going to slouch eventually.
Yep.
And so I want to design a chair where I'm laying back a little bit more than 45. I think like this chair right now is a little bit more than 45.
Well, that's also because it's broken as shit.
Yeah. This chair is devastated.
It's missing a lot of wheels.
It's missing every wheel at this point. Yeah. Some of them are less attached than others. Some of them have been sort of jerry-rigged and repaired a little bit. And at this point, there's no padding anymore. This used to have like a thick padding covered by leather. It's just put your hand right here. That's just a steel, just a steel bar right there in my spine. Feels great. This is the story of my life, Jerry. You're sitting in a broken chair. That was the one that came before this one. Yep. And so I think the only way I can do is design my own. Also, something important to me
would your chair be mobile or would it be stationary?
No, it'd be stationary. And but I would want all my stuff around it to be mobile, so the chair doesn't have to move if everything else can move.
Okay.
And also, I want it raised up. I'm sick of all these. Look how we're both tall guys. All right. You see how my hip is below my knee sitting in this chair when my feet are flat on the ground?
Oh, God. The chairs here.
It feels like I'm standing up out of a hole. I'm getting up out. So I want to design my chair high enough where I step down from the chair. I don't dig my way up out of it every time I want to get up.
Oh, yes. It is surprising how nice it is to go into a restaurant or someplace and to have your knees below you.
Yeah. Or just, I'm okay with just parallel with my hip.
Yeah.
But like sitting in this chair right now, my hip is probably 2 inches or 3 inches below my knee when my feet are flat on the ground.
Yeah.
It's so small. Mm-hmm. And getting up out of this chair is like effort. I'm basically doing like a low squat.
Yep.
I'm starting in a deep squat and getting up out of this chair.
We are both very tall people in a place where there are tall people, but the national average is noticeably shorter than us.
And this is not a country where they design things for the outlier.
No, this is very much it's the broadest target market. So
to complement this chair, since I'm going to be playing lean back, I'm going to need some kind of armature that comes from the wall that's holding monitors, the monitors and the computer and shit. How's that sound?
That would make sense. Now, would you want...
I don't know if it's going to come from a wall or if I'll build like a little wooden cage to hold it.
Now, you haven't watched much Star Trek, but they've got some of the captain's chairs and things where they got like little side panels built into the armrest. Yep. They have other ones where it's like a separate little stand next to the chair. They even have one where it's almost like one of these. Feel like you're in fucking high school desk. It's just like this folding thing that just like slides out in front of you or something like that.
Okay, so. You read my mind, okay? So you're one step ahead of me.
Right.
So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on Amazon. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to order a mouse with a really, really, really long cable because I want a wired mouse. I hate... There's very few things in this world that piss me off faster than having a wireless mouse that's cutting in and out, that's not receptive enough.
I've tried wireless mice, and every single one of them I have eventually discarded as a backup or
wireless keyboards I've found are a lot more reliable.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go for a wired mouse and a wireless keyboard, and because I'm at an angle, the keyboard will just be fixed to an armature that comes up from the side. The mouse, however, I'm going to drill a hole. I'm going to drill a couple holes in it, and I'm going to affix a mouse pad to an armature that comes up from the side, and I'm going to put, I forget what it's called, like a little sheet of metal basically behind it, and I'm going to put some magnets in the mouse. So even if the mouse pad is at like a 45-degree angle, the mouse doesn't fall off it. The mouse is stationary wherever you leave it on the pad, but you can still slide it around.
That would be a delicate balance between, maybe if you were to do that with, if you were to, you remember how the old school mice on the bottom, they would have that scroll wheel.
The ball, yeah.
Maybe if you were to put a couple small ball bearings in the corners of the mouse made out of metal, you'd have to do some heavy modification. But if you're going to do that shit anyways, because otherwise I could see a situation where you go to move your mouse and you're not getting the reaction because
it's sticking too much.
The magnetism is too high.
I think that would come down to probably the distance of the magnet to the thing, because it has the mouse pad in front of it already, and I'm going to have the magnets inside the mouse.
Okay.
And so it's going to be a pretty significant distance. And these are we're talking about really tiny magnets, really tiny neodymiums. I'm just going to epoxy on the inside. And I think it'll be okay. I think it will be a balancing act. I'll figure it out. But if it takes a little bit more force than normal to move it around, that's fine.
I think you could adapt to that. And I guess it would depend on what you're doing. If you're trying to do Counter-Strike first-person shooter, maybe it would be a little twitchy. If you're doing a strategy game such as Total War or a Civ game. And
remember, it will have the same amount of force when it's not moving as when it is. There won't be like an extra startup force to move it because the force is equal everywhere. If the only time the forces are going to change is if I pick the mouse up off the pad.
True.
But because it's affixed to the pad, anytime you move it around is all the same force, same amount of force.
But you still have to adjust to using that amount of force to begin with.
Certainly. Yeah.
It would be like having a mouse that's oversized that you're not...
And I want an extra big mouse pad because this little, like for example, I got a mouse pad that's right here. It's probably like 8 by 7 inches. You do end up having to move it around a lot.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah. So I'd probably have an extra big pad. And plastic smooth pad is the best. This pad is smooth on this side and coarse on the other side. I hate using the coarse side.
I think that depends on, I guess most modern mice are going to... Most modern mice are going to be laser optics. I can't really see an advantage of the old...
I haven't used one of those in years. There's no reason to go back to shitty technology
there are some times where they will work better if you're using like a fabric mouse pad, but honestly, why
mouse pads? I remember those. Yeah.
But
with the foam on the inside,
you can get away with that with those old. But nowadays, why would you ever do that?
So you're an experienced gamer. What else do I need? Am I forgetting anything here? I need the 2 armatures that hold the things, mouse pad and mouse and keyboard. I got the shit in front of me, the monitors and stuff. So I'm not going to do 3 monitors. I'm going to do computer on the left and then 2 monitors.
Racing games?
Nah, I hate racing games.
Okay.
Fuck that shit.
Speakers.
Yeah, there'll be I can build that into where the monitors are.
Still want to have it in consideration. Maybe have a big sub under your chair.
That'd be cool. Yeah, maybe not that aggressive, but
fuck it, have your sub make it a massage chair.
4 15-inch subs. Nothing better than brain damage.
Hey, it's called the dubstep massage.
No, in terms of practicality, is there anything I'm missing?
How many monitors?
2.
Okay.
And then since I'm using a laptop, I'm going to use the laptop screen. It's going to go laptop, monitor. Monitor will be in the middle for the actual game.
Any recording? You're going to have a mic?
Don't touch that, please. It might fuck it up. This mic's a piece of shit, so can't touch it while it's recording.
Are you going to have...
Yeah, I'll have that. And
sound equipment?
Yep, that will all be connected.
How about all your cables and shit? Are you going to have those go up the roof? You're going to have them go to the side? You're going to have them go down, around?
They're probably going to go down.
Okay.
I'm not sure, though, about that yet. It all depends on how long the cables are and all that jank.
Next thing, getting in and out.
Yes. So
you sit down. How are you going to get all these things to you? You got to take a piss. How are you going to get out?
So my
Are they going to be on wheels?
My thinking with that is, so since I want the table to be, the chair to be stationary, the thing that's holding the monitors and stuff, I want that to move. So
How about
I can push it
rails?
away. Yeah, something like that.
With a little lock
Probably
system?
rails on top.
Okay, I can see that.
And so I can push it away and stand up, and then when I sit down, I can pull it toward me.
Nice. Hydraulics?
No. I want everything to be as simple as humanly possible. Probably just a rail system, yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, I was thinking otherwise if you were to have something with wheels, you would get into where it rolls too much or not enough.
And the wheels always break down. I've never used anything with a wheel where the wheel didn't break down and decompose and turn to shit or just break. You know, like, yeah, it's just, I fucking hate wheels. Putting wheels on things, it never works.
Right.
Alright, I'm being called away. I'll be right back.
Alright.
Alright, looks okay. Alright, just came back from a little intermission. We were talking about how much putting wheels on things sucks.
Yeah.
They just don't work very well moving them around.
No.
Eventually the wheels break, they get all fucked up, or whatever it is.
Well, and especially if you're dealing with a specific setup and you want it to go where you want, when you want, you would think wheels are great, but no. I think putting your desk or your gear on a rail system would work a lot better.
You know how I know I'm becoming an old guy? It's because I fantasize about having a garage where I can build things. A garage filled with like tools and such. I want a little workshop, like a wood shop garage. You know, like a nice French cleat system on the walls and some I probably need a drill press. Need some saws. Need all the shit. And I'll use that shop to build my setup, my rig.
Well, then you'd have to make it there. You'd never want to leave your garage.
Yeah, maybe.
Just have it like sunken down into the floor then.
Maybe.
You know?
Yeah.
Go all James Bond style.
Or raised up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I climb down into the garage.
Oh man, what if you were to do like a gaming immersion dome or something like that, where you just like have like your little cubby or dome or something.
I need like 25 more monitors.
You know? Yeah. Well, no, it wouldn't have to be like that, but you just like make a soundproof room or something that's cut off from...
I wish I could get these monitors in America. They're so nice and they're so fucking cheap. It's like $60 to get a monitor.
It's surprising
But that same...
quality you can find here...
The exact same monitor in America is $300, $400. And then shipping this cheap monitor to America ends up being as expensive as just buying a monitor in America.
It's really surprising the markup of electronics. Now, that being said, I would say for the most part, most electronics you buy in North America has a baseline quality. You tend to get what you pay for. Yes, it's expensive, but you're usually you buy a $500 laptop, you're getting a $500 laptop.
I don't know, man. I find it very hard to trust electronics here. Very, very hard to trust them.
Here,
especially buying them from like a Computer City.
Yeah.
You know, in Wuhan.
Yeah, and that's the thing is here, yes, you can find much less expensive products, but the quality also goes down. I would say in North America there is... Not that everything is amazing quality, but there is a minimum quality standard for most electronics.
Also, there's customer service, which doesn't exist here.
Not at all.
So, like, I got this computer in North America last time I was home over the summer, this gaming computer, and I probably paid more for it in North America than I pay here. But I know that if this computer has a problem in North America, I can call somebody and they'll come fix it. Somebody from the company.
My old computer that I had went through 2 motherboards. Most annoying thing ever. But, point is, both times it happened, it was still under warranty. I sent it back. You know, I mailed it to them. They mailed it back. Fixed, brand new motherboard. You know,
nice.
six weeks later, blew another motherboard. I said, hey, look, guys, what the... They said, okay, send it to us. I shipped it to them. Replaced it, shipped it back. It's worked okay since. The computer I have now, if anything goes wrong with it, I take it into a computer repair shop. Hell, I could take it to the place I bought it from, and they'd give me a big dumb look that says, what do you want me to do with it? Take it to the computer repair shop, right? So I take it to the computer repair shop, and I've got low confidence that they'd be able to fix the problem, right? Sure, they could fix it, but it's iffy whether they'll be able to fix it, and even if they can, I wouldn't be confident that it'll stay fixed. So with North America, yes, you are paying more. The threshold is more for anything you're buying, but there is usually a bit more security in your purchase.
Something really surprised me with Lenovo when I bought this computer. They don't... So, like you just said, when you had a problem, you sent them the computer and then they sent it back to you. Mm-hmm. They don't offer that with Lenovo.
Really?
Instead, they have your address, and a Lenovo representative technician comes to your house same day, as long as you message them before a certain time. They come to your house and they fix the computer or replace it on the spot.
I suppose it would depend on the localization. Also, with Canada...
Well, that's the only option.
With Canada, we have a much lower population, so where I was, the nearest tech center This is what I mean. I don't understand how they can 400 kilometers away.
I don't understand how they can do it. And so I'm going to test it when I get home. I'm going to call them and be like, hey, my computer's not working as well as it used to. Come over. And I'm going to see how long it takes them to get there. And then when they get there, I want to see how equipped they actually are to fix problems. Is it going to be a van where a van filled with computer parts, including just entire new systems? Because that's how it was described to me. Or is it just going to be some guy with a couple tiny screwdrivers like, let me see what I can do, and like a duster. But I got a 3-year warranty on this, and I managed to convince them I was a teacher, because normally you have to provide proof that you're a teacher, which would be like your identification, a teaching identification, and shit like that in North America. But I ended up talking to one of their managers. And I was like, look, I'm a teacher in China. I don't have any of these numbers that you want because I'm not in a North American school. And so I got an extra 10% off. And so instead of taking that 10% off, the amount that 10% would have given me was the same amount as just getting like a 3-year warranty on it. And it covers 100%. Even things that are entirely my fault.
Really?
And that's another thing that I'm so skeptical about. And so I wasted like a solid half hour of the representative's time while I was talking to him, where I was just throwing situations at him. I'm like, what happens if I build a big fire and I hit my computer with a hammer and then throw it into the fire? He's like, yeah, it's covered. I'm like, what happens if I go to a bridge and I take a shit on the computer and then throw it off the bridge? He's like, yeah, it's covered. I'm like, what happens if I go to the highway and I throw it in front of a big truck? He's like, yeah, it's covered. I'm like, what happens if... And so it sounds like everything's covered.
Well, I would assume so.
Yeah.
That sounds rather extensive, comprehensive.
But then when it gets fucked up, it's going to be some situation that's not covered.
That's Murphy's Law, though.
It's going to be like, you were eating mint chocolate chip ice cream on a Tuesday on a full moon, and your hamster Murphy pissed on the keyboard. If you see in the fine print, that exact situation is not covered, sir.
If you'd been named Charlie, you would have been okay. But
yeah. Or if you only had 9 toes. But... I don't know how many toes hamsters have. I assume they have 5 digits on each foot.
I have no idea, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I've never owned a hamster, and if I did, counting his toes would not be...
You'd be too busy eating them.
Yeah. I mean, why else would you have a hamster? It's not like
I heard that guinea pigs are raised as food in some places.
It's not like you'd actually want to put any emotional investment into an animal that lives for 2 goddamn years.
I also heard that rabbits are being raised for food in America.
No, we're getting way off topic, off of games and stuff.
That's
but
okay.
Back in my hometown, we had...
You ate people?
No, we had a bit of a...
When the snows came, the snows fell 1,000 feet high.
We had a bit of a feral rabbit problem where some of them got loose. People would buy them for Valentine's Day or these Easters, and they didn't know what to do with it. You buy your 3-year-old son a rabbit, and he doesn't want to take care of it, and you don't want to take care of it. You got it for him.
And they just piss and shit on everything. Yep. They're shit pets.
So they just released them, and we ended up with all these rabbits. It wasn't downtown. It was near one of the other commercial areas.
Yeah, you need some coyotes.
And the city ended up hiring... this fellow to trap them and take them to the SPCA, but then it ended up you have to pay the vet bills to have them euthanized, or
Yeah, so they can't fight.
Not euthanized. You have
spayed and neutered.
Spayed and neutered, and then but the problem is, you do that to 10 rabbits. Well, you just caught 5% of the population.
Less than that,
right? That's irrelevant within 1 year, right? My suggestion was...
Don't they breed much faster than that?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
My suggestion was, instead of hiring some guy to go catch rabbits, we've got a whole bunch of hungry homeless people. Why don't we just give them nets and give them BB guns?
Well,
and let the problem sort itself out.
I don't think you should arm the homeless people. I think instead what you should do is hire the hunter, just round up the rats or like the rabbits and bring them to the shelter where they'll cook them.
Here's another thing. Did you know rabbits are rodents?
Yeah,
they are.
I could see that. Yeah, of course.
They are in the rodent family. They are more closely related to rats than any other animal.
Yeah,
they're
really furry and cute.
They look cute and cuddly.
It's the same thing with a squirrel.
Yeah.
No one hates squirrels like they hate rats, but they're exactly the same animal. One has a bushy tail. Yeah. But squirrels are better though. Rats are pieces of shit. Like, okay, so there's a few animals where the world would genuinely be better off if they were extinct. Alright? Mosquitoes. I don't give a fuck about the food chain. The food chain can go fuck itself. Alright? The quote-unquote balance in nature can go fuck itself.
We're doing a pretty good job of that.
No, not good enough. We need extinction-level mosquito repellent. That's, Bill Gates is working on curing malaria. I think it might be easier to just kill all the mosquitoes.
Huh?
And then number 2 after mosquitoes, rats. If they all went extinct tomorrow, there would be no negative side effects. Or maybe not none, but no severe negative side effects. Nature, I think, would adapt instantly. Because rats aren't indigenous to really anywhere at this point. Almost everywhere that rats are, they're an invasive species. And almost all the rats in the world live under big human cities. So there's no nature there anyway.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly where rats originated from, and even where they did originate from.
Still fucking there as well.
I'm not sure how integrated they are, how integral they are into their own
They get eaten by, coyotes and owls and hawks and stuff like that.
But again, as far as North America goes, they are not native to North America. They are straight up an invasive species. So if they were to all disappear from North America... And
I've heard from other podcasts that without coyotes, and because coyotes slaughter them in crazy numbers, and that's the only reason that they are confined to cities, is because out in open country, things like hawks and coyotes slaughter rats. Because there's nowhere for them to hide.
Right.
Yeah. But without these predatory animals, the whole country would be overrun with them. Overrun. Yeah. And there's nothing humans can do to them. I mean, it's a problem I've spent too much time thinking about. But I think it's it's a fun thought experiment because it seems so hopeless. How the fuck do you deal with rats under a city? They say that there's more rats than people in New York. There's like 8 million or 9 million people, and there's like 20 million rats. These are just completely random guesses. But what do you do with them?
To swing this around back to some of our gaming, that ties in well with our Skaven we were talking about.
Vermintide is a game that looks really good. I haven't got it yet, but it looks good.
We were talking about some Skaven and shit. One thing I actually asked you, I think a couple weeks ago, which I don't think we talked about on a podcast, an entire city populated with Ratmen. Realistically, how the hell do you deal with that? You give some guy a torch and a sword and you say, you go down into those tunnels and you kill anything that moves. Here's the catch though. They're almost as smart as you. They can see better than you. They know you're coming. They're armed as well as you are. And this is their natural habitat. Go kill them. How, you can't deal with that.
And you know what's funny?
What would we do if rats were to gain sentience?
Well, you know what the irony is? I actually think rats in real life are harder to deal with than rats in this game. At least the Skaven are man-sized, and like when you're talking about a rat that can squeeze through like a 1 inch by 1 inch hole, it's just there's nothing you can do to get it.
Can't chase that fucker down.
Short of destroying the entire city and like with poison, obviously physically destroying it doesn't do anything. They would just live in the rubble.
Yeah.
But you'd have to make the entire city an unlivable wasteland with either radiation or airborne poison. Those are the only methods I can think of. And even with airborne poison, I feel like they would just go deeper and deeper. They would just go away from the poison. Because rats are quite smart. You know, if a rat watches another rat die, it will remember how it died and it will avoid that thing. So like that's why rat traps are quite ineffective, because all it takes is for the rats to watch one other rat die to that trap and they won't go anywhere near it ever again.
That's interesting.
It's the same thing with poison. If a rat eats a food source and then dies, the other rats won't eat that food source.
Nah, it depends on the poison. Now, I know my dad's an exterminator, and a lot of the poisons that...
So you should know this really well. I would love to hear his opinion.
Some of the poisons that he uses, they're hemologic based. So what will happen is the rat will eat it, it will start feeling ill, it will go back to its home because it feels sick. The rat doesn't realize it's bleeding internally. Its insides are just messed up.
Yeah.
It goes back to its home and it dies.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a lot of pain, that piece of shit. I fucking hate rats. They're so invasive. I hate them because there's nothing we can do about it. We're talking about Skaven and Warhammer. They're easier to deal with. At least you can send an army down there.
Well, I think...
At least it's a large object that can't just dig into a hole and you can just fucking kill it. You know, we're talking about tens of millions of rats under New York. Probably tens of millions under Wuhan as well. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
If there were, there's 15 million people in Wuhan, okay? So let's say it's a 2-to-1 ratio for rats. Probably way more. But let's say it's 2-to-1. So it's 30 million rats under Wuhan. How many Skaven do you think the underbelly of Wuhan could support? The sewer systems. Let's say 1 million. All right? It's way easier, I think, to get 15 million people to kill 1 million man-sized rats than to kill 30 million rat-sized rats without completely destroying the city. And again, they would just leave. If you poison the area, they would just leave. If you gas the area, they would leave. And you can't introduce any predators. What are you going to introduce? In World War I, they brought in ratting dogs and large cats. The rats ate them. That's how many rats there were at World War I. In
sufficient numbers, yeah, rats will turn on large predators.
So anything you drop into the sewer, it's fucked. You could drop wolves down there. I bet they'd eat the wolves.
What if you could engineer rats with a limited lifespan?
It would have to be something biological, but then there's always a chance of that spreading. There's always a chance of that gene mutating and spreading, right?
Yeah, well, you'd have to engineer it very carefully. They're sterile and they only live for a certain amount of time, and they are just homicidal,
killing each other.
Yeah, but then
see, you're the crazy scientist. Okay?
You would still run.
Why do they need to be homicidal if they can't breed and they only live for 1 day?
Because you're trying to get them to kill other rats.
Yeah.
Right.
What you're gonna do is get a literal wave of rats over the city eating people.
Oh yeah, and I mean, even
homicidal. Why does that need to be a feature?
Sorry, not homicidal. I guess
totally blood crazed,
cannibalistic.
Okay,
they would hunt out other rats.
I would say it would be more useful to make them. It would be
still have a devastating impact on your local mammal.
I think it would be more
useful
to make them really, really horny. So that all you do is you pass a gene to them that makes them infertile, and then you make the women infertile. So then you make and it makes the men extremely horny, and all these infected male rats go out and fuck. Wait, how's this work? Oh no, and then they impregnate female rats, and the female rats give birth to rats that are
sterile.
Sterile, yeah.
That's some next level genetic manipulation. I mean,
yours is way more than
absolutely.
You're talking about breeding super rats with lasers for eyes.
I'm making no claims as to the.
They should also have bone armor, and they should use spears, phalanxes.
Oh, why not?
Man, we need some pickle Ricks down there. That's what we need.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, I know. One of us was gonna go there eventually. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. Skaven are easier to deal with.
I mean, Also, from a gameplay mechanic, yeah, you fight a Skaven, it dies, it goes away.
Well, from the practicality mechanic, again, we're talking about just a way larger. This is why the old adage of it's always proposed as a problem. Like, how do you deal with rats? Well, you bring in cats. How do you deal with cats? You bring in dogs. How do you deal with dogs? You bring in wolves. How do you deal with wolves? And you deal with
constant
bears.
Escalation doesn't necessarily solve this.
No, but in practicality sense, it's fucking way easier to shoot one bear than to kill 100,000 rats. If we're talking about the food chain here, how many rats have to be at the bottom to support one grizzly bear at the top? A fucking lot. Because the bear, in this situation, the bear has to eat wolves, and the wolves have to eat dogs, and the dogs have to eat cats, and the cats have to eat rats. So it's way fucking easier to shoot one bear from time to time than it is to go hunt down 100,000 rats.
I mean, this is something, it would be interesting to...
But, I mean, can you think of any creature on Earth that we could introduce to kill the rats?
Virus.
No, but that would spread to human beings.
True.
So it would have to be another creature. Something that can kill a rat, but is less of a problem than the rats.
Even snakes would have their downside. It kills one or two, and then it would go to sleep.
And the rats would eat it.
And the rats would eat it?
Yeah. Snakes have no chance. The only thing I could think of would maybe like minks.
Stouts.
I don't know
what are they called? Stoats? Stoats. They're in the mink family.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
They are savage little monsters.
Minks will obliterate rats.
They are one of the few animals that will kill for fun.
Yeah. But first question is, how many do you need? Second question is, a mink is way bigger than a rat, so it can't get the small rats. Small rats will get away. They'll go through little cracks and holes.
That's what I was saying. These stoats, they're actually very small. Like, you look at them and they're
pretty little. How big is their skull? Because they have to get through little holes and such.
They're very. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but they are very small. Like, I saw this video of one, and it was playing with a cat, and it literally wrapped its entire body like a ring around this cat's neck. And it just ran circles around this cat. And had it wanted to kill that cat, it just would have slashed veins, necks, anything. Damn. That cat would have been dead in seconds.
So it's called stoat? What if we release hundreds of thousands of stoats under New York City?
Oh my god, then how do you kill them?
Yeah, how do you kill the stoats then? Well, maybe you could gradually escalate it, because let's assume the stoats are small enough to get into all the same places the rats can. Stoats kill all the rats. Then we bring minks to kill the stoats. Right? And then, I don't know. Something to kill them. Maybe honey badgers to kill the minks.
Honey badgers. Honey badgers just do what they want.
And coyotes to kill the badgers. Then wolves to kill the coyotes. Then grizzly bears to kill the wolves. And then once a year, we kill 2 or 3 grizzly bears. There's the solution, everyone.
Who are the guys? Now, I'm terrible with keeping up with pop culture. Who are the guys who wrote Game of Thrones? Put them on the problem. They can kill goddamn anything they want.
Oh, shit.
Including your story.
Yeah, D&D reference. Fuck those guys.
Yeah.
I hope they get taken off the their Star Wars contract. I hope the backlash from Game of Thrones Season 8 is so severe that they lose that opportunity to work on.
So you wanna switch over and talk about Game of Thrones for a bit?
I don't. I've been talking about it endlessly for like a month now.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm tired of it, honestly.
Okay.
It's just a black spot in my memory now. Dark time.
All right.
Yeah, man. Fucking all right, so let's take Warhammer 2 into the real world.
Okay.
Who do you think would be the most threatening faction? I would say Lizardmen would be up there. And
Lizardmen would be a problem.
Let's say you have a ruin, like a ruin city, and it's filled with Skaven. Lizardmen would clean that shit out, no problem. A bunch of vicious reptiles going to that city, those rats would be obliterated.
I think it would depend on exactly how many lizardmen you're introducing and what their precise breeding cycles would be like. I mean, I imagine someone who knows more about the Warhammer fantasy would be able to answer these questions a bit better.
But who do you think would do well in global conquest?
I mean, we're talking about rats. I think Skaven would be a problem, but like you said, there would be ways to deal with them. Lizardmen, you definitely have a lot of problems with. Despite their hardiness, I think the dwarves' tendencies to reclusiveness would work against them in the long run.
I agree. I think...
However difficult
lore,
it would be to kill them, you wouldn't have to.
So if we're going off the lore, then the dwarves wouldn't ever try to take over the world.
And even if they, you would simply have to contain them until they essentially dealt with themselves, right? Elves, again, you're going to run into something similar. Yes, they're very strong. Yes, they're long-lived. But given enough time, I think they would take care of themselves, really. Orcs.
Orcs would be a problem, yeah, because they're...
Greenskins.
They really would push for domination, global domination.
And unless you eradicate every last one of them, you will never eradicate them. Yeah. Until you kill the last orc, there will always be another.
If we're using Warhammer orc lore, they would be more populous than the Skaven. Substantially, in fact. Because they're like a fungal spore.
Yeah.
And so they can have, like, in the 40k lore, their population can go from 1 to billions in a very, 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 very short amount of time. Like, they can overrun an entire planet in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. I almost don't, as much as I would enjoy the Warhammer fantasy, I don't see how you could actually have orcs and not have them destroy our planet before we ever got off the ground. Like, we orcs would have destroyed our fantasy world before we ever got to 40k.
100%. In 40k, they justify it by having the orcs be so easily killed in combat, like so easily dealt with. A single Space Marine will kill thousands of orcs in a battle.
We didn't have Space Marines. Okay,
no, but I'm saying that's how they justify it in 40k.
Yes.
Yeah.
But once they are established on a planet, if you were to have a small country or area that was overrun by orcs, it would be nearly impossible to free your planet of them.
Exterminatus. Destroy the whole world.
Yep. That's really one of the only long-term options for doing that. But if that happens to be our home planet, well, there goes the neighborhood.
Yeah, we can make another one. Home 2.0.
Not until we get to a certain technological level.
Protect it better. I think the humans will be wiped out.
Definitely.
So quickly. Yeah. Chaos.
Vampires.
Vampires would do very well, I think. I think the Tomb Kings would do very well.
Tomb Kings, yes. Undead, the question would be can the undead infect other major races? Could you have undead Skaven? Could you have undead
lizards?
Could you have undead orcs?
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe the vampirism only works on humans, though. So then, if you have the human factions get wiped out, the vampires lose their number one source of fresh troops. Unless
the vampires were the ones to wipe them out in a large push, then they would have the numbers. But eventually, they are vampires. I'm not dead yet. They could theoretically, in a long term, lose to attrition because of difficulties replenishing their numbers.
Yeah. What about chaos? How would they do?
The problem with chaos is...
Because, again, if we're using, like, real life, there's no, like, paying attrition. No paying upkeep or any bullshit like that. You're not paying demons to fight in your army. It's fucking horseshit.
No, but I think, again, the demons
You're not feeding them either.
No. But the demons would be coming from a location. If you could find...
They come from another plane of existence.
If you could find and stop where they are bleeding into, which in the lore they've dealt with that multiple times. You know, the demon invasions, then they push them back, they shut down the portals, they stabilize these rifts or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it would be possible. Now, if you were to have a completely unstable rift that chaos were to just be continually pouring through, I think they would
eventually win.
It would be unstoppable.
Yeah.
Right? Because as far as I know, the warp is limitless.
It is, yeah.
even if there is an upper limit to the warp, when you're talking on a planetary scale, okay, what is the upper limit for a planetary scale of a planet full of Skaven? Billions? Trillions? Okay, sure. What is the limit for the Chaos making an invasion on it? There is none. If you're talking on a galactic scale, could Chaos mount an invasion of millions on millions of planets? I don't know. But if you're talking about an individual world, the resources they could dedicate to an individual world are so limitless as to make it inconsequential. Given enough time and enough stability that allows them to continue coming through a rift or whatever, it would be unstoppable. You would have to find the source and shut it down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Norska, pretty meaningless.
Yeah, even the Norska gameplay, taking over the world as them is rather difficult. They can only directly colonize coastal settlements. Mm-hmm. So yes, you just raise everything else, but that means you're going to have a difficult time maintaining the settlements you have and expanding where you want to go. I think doing that would be a really long... I really can't see them taking over the world.
Yeah.
They really wouldn't have the drive either. They're raiders and they're pirates. They really wouldn't have it in them for global conquest.
So in the end, probably Orcs number one, and then after that, I'd probably go with Skaven, especially considering their technology in this game is really really advanced.
Yes.
If this were a real world situation, their technology would crush enemies.
I would say
they have great artillery. They have guns. They have rockets.
Orcs don't need any of that. They don't.
They would just run over.
Wow.
Yeah. Just be a wave of orcs.
Yep. The Green Tide. The Vermin Tide would definitely be a problem, but I think, again, rats would breed very quickly, but I don't think at quite the same level as the orcs. And I think the Chaos, if you could shut down their portals and stop them from spawning, you could eliminate them.
I think that the rats, though, they do have advanced chemical weapons, so they could... I think that they could probably get to a point where they could defend themselves indefinitely from any amount of orcs.
I'd be curious to see how that chemical warfare would work against lizard men, though.
Yeah.
Because I imagine they would have certain immunities that we wouldn't.
Or be more resistant to it, at least.
That being said, they could also have certain susceptibilities to it.
Yeah.
I can't see the lizard men being so dedicated as to engage in an extended campaign in the frozen north. They just, unless their lives depended on it, they would get somewhat north and just say, okay, this is good enough.
Yeah.
And if you let the Skaven just live up in the north for long enough, eventually they'll come back in numbers. Same thing with the orcs, same thing with Chaos. I think the lizardmen would...
They'd be outmatched eventually.
They'd be able to conquer large portions of the world, but I think in the long run, they wouldn't be able to hold on to their gains long term.
I agree.
Same thing would go for humans, elves, dwarves.
Especially fighting for the underways, the dwarves would lose against the rats eventually.
Even if they didn't, they would have so many other problems. Even if they could just hold their own, they could prevent invasions from underneath. Even the rats would have so many other ways of doing things, and not that the dwarves are stupid or unwilling to adapt.
Again, they have chemical warfare as well.
They are less willing to adapt, and eventually the Skaven will just come from above. Mm-hmm. The Skaven will reach a level of technological superiority where they would destroy the dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the dwarves are advanced technologically, but
they also have guns. Yeah.
Yes, and they've got some advanced artillery pieces and certain technology. They've got flying helicopters and things. But given their reclusive tendencies, I don't see them being proactive enough to prevent themselves being surrounded and destroyed.
So do you think if they were as aggressive as the orcs, they would win? I still think the orcs win. I think even if you have an unstoppable swarm or like an unclosable chaos portal, I still think the orcs win. I think you just have this chaos portal that's leaking demons into a sea of orcs, and they're just constantly dying. I think you just have a never-ending war that exists for 1,000 years, swarming, a tornado of orcs swarming around the portal, just butchering every single demon that steps through.
You do realize this entire argument only lasts until the Tyranids show up.
Yeah, of course.
And then they just devour everything.
I like Tyranids versus orcs. I like that matchup. All right. I think that's a good place to end it.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's been another episode of Bullshit and Video Games. Thank you, Jerry, for coming on again. Always great conversations.
Hey, I got lots of bullshit to share.
Yeah. Thank you very much, man.
Yep.
Take care, everybody. I'll catch you in the next one. Do all that good stuff down below. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Yada, yada. You know what to do. Take care. Bye-bye.
How am I gonna find man I'm supposed to be? The man I am ain't the man